Geisha's grace is a masterpiece of hidden study. Behind every elegant gesture and captivating smile lies a secret curriculum, a lifetime of rigorous training in arts most of us have never even heard of. This video will unravel that hidden world. You will discover the exact skills a Geisha masters, from wielding a three-stringed instrument to conducting a silent conversation with a folded fan. We will explore how these artists transform into living embodiments of Japanese culture. What does it truly take to wear the kimono not just as clothing, but as a second skin of profound symbolism? How does a young apprentice survive the intense years of training to emerge as a paragon of poise and intellect? By the end, you will understand the geisha not as a mysterious figure from the past, but as a dedicated professional artist whose education rivals that of any classical virtuoso. What do you believe is the most important skill for keeping a centuries-old tradition alive? The journey to becoming a geisha begins with a single, life-altering step through the door of an akiya. This is not a school in the traditional sense, but a geisha house, a world unto itself where a young girl, often just 15, leaves her former life behind to become a meiko. This word, meiko, literally translates to dancing child, and it marks the beginning of a 5-year apprenticeship so immersive and demanding it shapes every waking moment. Imagine moving into a new home where your entire existence, from your schedule to your speech, is meticulously designed for a single purpose, artistic perfection. The akiya operates on a strict hierarchy. At the top is the mother of the house, the akasin, who manages the business and investments. Then there are the full geisha, and at the foundation, the meiko apprentices. A meiko's most crucial relationship is with her one-san, meaning older sister. This is not a casual term. A senior geisha chooses a meiko to mentor, guiding her through the intricate social and artistic labyrinth of their world. The one-san teaches by example, showing her younger sister how to walk, how to speak, how to pour tea for a client, and most importantly, how to navigate conversations with grace and wit. This sisterhood creates a personal lineage of artistry, ensuring traditions are passed down not through textbooks, but through lived experience. Daily life for a meiko is a relentless cycle of study. Her mornings might begin with lessons in traditional dance, where every flick of her wrist and slide of a foot is practiced for hours. Afternoons could be dedicated to mastering the shamisen, that three-stringed instrument, her fingers learning the complex melodies that will one day accompany gatherings. She studies tea ceremony, flower arrangement, and the subtle art of calligraphy. Even her appearance is a lesson. A meiko wears a brilliantly colored, long-sleeved kimono, often with elaborate, dangling obi sashes. Her makeup is stark white with striking red and black accents, and her own hair is supplemented with elaborate wax-based ornaments. This vibrant, almost theatrical look is no accident. It loudly announces her status as a work in progress, a living student whose beauty is meant to be observed and appreciated as part of her training. While a full geisha's attire is more subdued and elegant, the meiko's costume is a symbol of her budding potential, a visual promise of the refined artist she is striving to become. Every detail, from the swing of her long sleeves to the way she pins her hair, is a silent chapter in her education. But the true heart of a geisha's artistry, the skill that defines her public presence, is found in the dance. This is not casual movement. It is buyo, a classical Japanese dance form so refined it feels like watching poetry written in the air. For a geisha, dance is her primary language of performance. a silent narrative told with every tilt of the head and sweep of a silk sleeve. Its roots stretch deep into Japanese history, drawing from the stately, symbolic movements of No theater and the more dramatic flair of kabuki. To master Buyo is to learn an entire vocabulary of gesture, where a single motion can convey a specific emotion, a natural element, or even a character from a centuries-old story. Think of it as a living archive, where tales of love, loss, and the changing seasons are preserved not in books, but in the muscle memory of the dancer. The training is relentless and begins in childhood for the Mako. She must learn to control her body with an almost supernatural precision. This starts with her hands in what is called tizukai. Every finger position has meaning. A gently curved hand might represent holding a flower, while a sharper, angled gesture could depict the falling of autumn leaves. Her feet must glide across the floor in precise, sliding steps, creating the illusion that she is floating, never making a heavy, jarring sound. Perhaps most challenging is the mastery of expression performed behind a mask of composure. A geisha's face during a dance is serene, almost detached. The story is not told with a broad smile or a frown, but through the slightest narrowing of the eyes, the almost imperceptible angle of the chin. All the emotion is channeled into the movement itself, creating a powerful contrast between her calm face and the expressive story her body tells. And every step is intimately tied to music. A geisha's dance is almost always performed to the live accompaniment of the shamisen. The dancer and the musician are in a delicate, unspoken dialogue. The shamisen player follows the dancer's cues, and the dancer moves in response to the music's tempo and feeling. The stories they tell together are drawn from a classical repertoire. A dance might depict a famous scene from the tale of Genji, or express the melancholy beauty of a lone traveler in the winter snow. The props are simple but deeply symbolic. A folding fan becomes a writing brush, a sake cup, or the moon itself. When you watch a geisha perform buyo, you are not just seeing a dance. You are witnessing the culmination of thousands of hours of study, a physical manifestation of history, literature, and music, all expressed through the disciplined grace of a single artist. These intricate dances belong to distinct formal schools, each with its own history and aesthetic. A geisha's affiliation is not a personal choice, but is tied to her district, much like a musician being trained in a specific classical tradition. In Kyoto, the graceful and lyrical Inao school holds great influence, its movements emphasizing flowing, circular patterns that evoke the natural beauty of the ancient capital. In Tokyo, formerly Edo, the Fujima school is prominent, known for its more dynamic and dramatic style, reflecting the energetic spirit of the shogun's city. This regional distinction is profound. The Kamegata-mai style of Kyoto is often described as more subtle and internally focused, a dance of nuanced emotion that seems to bloom from within. The Edo-mai style of Tokyo is typically more outwardly expressive and bold, with sharper gestures and a stronger narrative flair. To witness the difference is to understand how geography and history are encoded in the body's language. The ultimate showcase for this artistry is the annual public performances, where the hidden world of the geisha opens its doors. The most famous is Kyoto's Miyako Odori, the cherry blossom dances, held every April. For a full month, the city's most accomplished Jaiko and Mako perform multiple times a day in a breathtaking spectacle. The stage becomes a living painting of the seasons, with dancers in exquisite kimonos representing spring blossoms, summer streams, and autumn moons, all moving in perfect, synchronized harmony to the plaintive melodies of the shamisen and flute. It is a rigorous, professional production that draws audiences from across the globe, yet its core purpose transcends entertainment. These dances are a vital act of preservation. Each movement, each musical phrase, is a thread connecting the present to the Heian court or the Edo period. When a Meiko performs a piece from the kabuki repertoire, she is not merely copying steps. She is giving physical form to stories that have been told for centuries, ensuring they are passed to a new generation. This is why a Geisha's dance is recognized as an intangible cultural heritage by organizations like UNESCO. It is not a static relic frozen in time, but a living tradition that requires constant practice, interpretation, and transmission from teacher to student. The dance is the vessel. It carries within it the aesthetics, the literature, the music, and the social history of entire eras. Every time a geisha adjusts her fan or meets the gaze of her shamisen player, she is engaging in a dialogue with the past. So the next time you see an image of a geisha in mid-performance, look beyond the beautiful costume. See the scholar in motion, the historian whose body is a library, and the artist whose every gesture is a deliberate, graceful act of keeping a world alive. That silent language of dance finds its voice through a distinct and haunting sound, the sharp, percussive pluck of the shamisen. If the dance is the poetry, this three-stringed instrument is the unwavering rhythm and melody that gives it life. For a geisha, mastering the shamisen is not an optional skill. It is a fundamental pillar of her artistry, as essential as her own breath. The instrument itself is deceptively simple in appearance. A long, slender neck attached to a small, square body covered in taut cat or dog skin. But to produce its signature sound, a sound that can be both sorrowful and exhilaratingly lively, requires immense physical discipline. The player does not sit on a chair, but kneels in the formal seiza position on the floor, the shamisen resting on her thigh. She holds a large, triangular plectrum called a bakai in her right hand, using it to strike the strings with a forceful, controlled snap. Her left hand presses the strings against the smooth neck, which has no frets, meaning every note's pitch depends entirely on the precise placement of her fingertips. The physical toll is real, calluses form quickly, and the repetitive motion can strain the wrist and shoulder. But this demanding technique creates that unmistakable tone, a crisp, almost twanging resonance that cuts through the air with clarity and emotional depth. This sound provides the entire backbone for the geisha's world, accompanying not only dances, but also the songs she must learn to sing. Her musical education involves navigating different genres, each with its own character and difficulty. There is the lively and rhythmic Kiyomoto style, often used in kabuki theater, which requires swift, percussive playing to drive the narrative forward. Then there is the more flowing and melodic nagata, or long song, which forms the core accompaniment for many classical dances. A geisha must become fluent in these musical languages, learning to both play the complex instrumental lines and sing the poetic lyrics in a clear, controlled voice that complements rather than competes with the shamisen's bright tone. She is, in effect, a one-woman ensemble, her voice and instrument engaged in a delicate duet. The songs themselves are not simple pop tunes, they are classical texts, filled with archaic language and references to historical events or famous pieces of literature. To perform them is to deliver a lecture in melody, requiring her to understand the meaning behind every word she sings. So when you hear the plaintive, shimmering notes of a shamisen in a tea house, you are not just hearing music, you are witnessing a geisha's years of muscular memory and intellectual study made audible, a sound that has shaped Japanese entertainment for centuries. Yet the shamisen is rarely a solitary voice. In the richer tapestry of a full ensemble, other instruments join to create a more complex musical landscape, and a geisha must be familiar with them all. The fu, a Japanese transverse flute made of bamboo, introduces an element of breath and wind. Its sound is hauntingly ethereal, capable of long, flowing melodies that seem to mimic the call of birds or the sigh of the wind through pines. Mastering the fu is a lesson in breath control and subtlety, as the player must shape each note with the precise pressure of her lips and the placement of her fingers over the small holes. Then come the drums, the heartbeat of the ensemble. The katsuzumi is a small, hourglass-shaped drum held on the shoulder. Its sound is not a deep boom, but a sharp, high-pitched crack that punctuates the music. Its pitch actually changed by the drummer squeezing the laces that hold the drumheads taut. It provides a complex conversational rhythm. In contrast, the larger taiko, played with thick wooden sticks, delivers powerful, resonant beats that anchor the entire performance, marking dramatic transitions and emphasizing the dancer's most forceful movements. Each of these instruments represents a different layer of the musical conversation a geisha must understand, even if she does not play them all herself. But perhaps the most personal and demanding instrument of all is her own voice. The art of yutai, or singing in the classical style, is a monumental challenge. This is not pop singing or even operatic belting. Yutai requires a very specific, almost nasal vocal placement, a tight control of the diaphragm, and the mastery of intricate melodic ornaments called kabushi. These are subtle shakes, slides, and turns on a single syllable that give the ancient poetry its emotional color and complexity. The singer must project clearly without shouting, navigating a melody that follows the natural cadence of the Japanese language rather than a simple, catchy tune. The lyrics themselves are dense with classical references and poetic devices, meaning a geisha must internalize the story she is telling, conveying its sorrow, joy, or longing through the precise shaping of each note and word. It is a skill so difficult that many consider it the pinnacle of a geisha's musical training, the final layer that transforms a technically proficient performance into a truly soulful one. When you hear that unique, plaintive vocal line rise above the shamisen and drums, you are listening to years of disciplined breathwork, linguistic study, and emotional interpretation, all focused through the human voice. This mastery of music and movement finds its quiet counterpart in a different kind of performance, one where every action is a deliberate, meditative art. A geisha's study of the tea ceremony, known as sado or chanoyu, is far more than learning to make a hot drink. It is the practice of creating a perfect moment of peace, a choreographed ritual where mindfulness, aesthetics, and profound hospitality become one. In the intimate setting of a tea house, the geisha transforms from a performer into a hostess, whose every gesture is part of a silent, beautiful dialogue. The ceremony itself is a series of precise, flowing steps, each designed to focus the mind and honor the guest. It begins with the purification of the utensils. The hostess cleanses the tea bowl, the bamboo whisk, and the silk cloth with a slow, reverent care, wiping away not just dust but the distractions of the outside world. This act sets the stage, signaling a transition into a separate, sacred space. Then comes the preparation of the thick, vibrant matcha. The geisha measures the powdered green tea with a bamboo scoop, places it into the bowl, and adds hot water. With the whisk, she then mixes it into a smooth, frothy emulsion. her movements creating a soft, rhythmic sound that is part of the ceremony's music. The final act is the presentation. She turns the bowl so its most beautiful side faces the guest, places it on the tatami mat, and offers it with a bow. The guest receives it, admires its craftsmanship, takes 3.5 sips, and returns it with gratitude. This entire sequence is performed with an economy of motion, a graceful efficiency that makes the complex look effortless. But the physical steps are merely the surface. The true purpose is to embody the 4 core principles that guide the way of tea. The first is wa, harmony. This is harmony between host and guest, between the utensils and the season, even between the sound of the boiling water and the silence of the room. A geisha achieves this by being perfectly attuned to her surroundings, adjusting the flower arrangement or the scroll in the alcove to reflect the time of year, creating a seamless, harmonious environment. The second is K, respect. This is a deep consideration for everyone and everything involved. She handles each humble utensil as if it were a priceless treasure, and she serves her guest with total, selfless attention, anticipating needs without a word being spoken. The third is Sei, purity. This is both the literal cleanliness of the space and tools, and the inner clarity of the hostess. By performing the cleansing rituals with focus, she purifies her own intentions, entering a state of mental calm free from personal worries or ego. The final principle is Jaku, tranquility. This is the ultimate goal, the serene and sophisticated atmosphere that settles over the room like a gentle mist. It is a tranquility born from the perfect execution of the first 3 principles. When a geisha serves tea, she is not just offering a beverage, she is orchestrating an experience of Jaku, giving her guest a rare gift of stillness in a chaotic world. Through her study of Sato, she learns to wield silence and simplicity as powerfully as she wields a fan or a shamisen, proving that sometimes the most profound artistry lies in the creation of perfect peace. That tranquil moment of serving tea is also a masterclass in observation. While her hands move through the ritual, a geisha's attention is fully on her guest, reading the subtlest of cues. The way a guest holds the tea bowl, the slight hesitation before the first sip, the direction of their gaze as they admire the room's seasonal scroll, all of these are silent messages. A guest who handles the bowl with nervous, fumbling fingers might be feeling out of place, so she responds with extra warmth in her smile and a slower, more reassuring pace to put them at ease. Another guest who examines the calligraphy with a knowing nod invites a quiet, informed comment about the poet or the brushstroke style. This is the ceremony's hidden social dimension. It is a graceful tool for putting people at ease and opening a door to deeper connection. Her knowledge extends far beyond the steps of making tea. It encompasses the entire aesthetic universe of the terum. She can speak intelligently about the history of the bamboo water ladle, perhaps carved by a famous artisan generations ago. She understands why a rustic, asymmetrical ceramic bowl is chosen for an autumn gathering, its earthy tones reflecting the turning leaves outside. The hanging scroll in the alcove is never random. Its painting or poem is selected to hint at the season or set a contemplative theme, and she is prepared to discuss its meaning. Even the seasonal sweet served before the bitter matcha is a conversation piece. Its delicate shape of a maple leaf or a cherry blossom crafted from bean paste is a tribute to the time of year. This deep, contextual knowledge transforms her from a silent hostess into a cultured conversationalist. When a guest remarks on the beauty of the kettle's sound, she can explain how the iron's thickness creates that specific, soothing murmur. This expertise allows her to guide the interaction effortlessly, using the ceremony's objects and atmosphere as natural prompts for discussion. It positions her not as a mere entertainer, but as a curator of experience, an intellectual companion who can elevate a simple gathering into a memorable encounter with art, history, and mindfulness. The tea ceremony in her hands becomes the ultimate social lubricant, a shared activity that requires no small talk, yet fosters a profound sense of connection and respect. That same brush used for a poem's title can also be wielded for a far more personal form of expression. The art of Shodo, Japanese calligraphy, is another cornerstone of a geisha's intellectual training, one that transforms writing from mere communication into a visual and spiritual performance. To watch a geisha prepare her ink is to witness the beginning of a meditation. She grinds the solid ink stick against the stone with water in slow, deliberate circles, a rhythmic sound that focuses the mind. This act itself is part of the discipline, creating the perfect consistency of ink, neither too watery nor too thick. Then she selects her brush, its tip a delicate point of animal hair. The challenge is absolute control over three inseparable elements: the flow of ink, the pressure of the hand, and the speed of the stroke. There is no erasing, no going back. A single character must be executed with a confident, flowing motion, from the powerful beginning of a stroke to the graceful, tapering finish. Too much hesitation, and the line bleeds and blurs. Too much force, and the paper tears. She must internalize the form of each kanji character, understanding its balance and energy, so that when the brush meets the paper, it is not drawing a shape but releasing it. This rigorous practice has deeply practical applications in her world. A geisha uses shodo to write elegant, personalized notes to her clients and patrons, her handwriting itself a testament to her refinement. She might inscribe the menu for a banquet on a decorative scroll, each dish name rendered with an aesthetic flair that complements the food. In the tea room, she could be called upon to write the poetic name for a particular gathering on a thin strip of paper, which is then displayed in the alcove. But beyond utility, Shodo cultivates a state of mind essential to her profession, a focused calm and a presence in the moment. The blank page demands complete attention, pushing all distraction aside. The single, irrevocable stroke teaches decisiveness and grace under pressure, qualities that are just as vital when navigating a lively conversation or a complex dance sequence. Her calligraphy is a silent display of her inner composure, a physical signature of her cultivated spirit. This literary skill naturally extends from the beauty of the character to the beauty of the words it forms. A geisha's education in poetry is not about memorizing dusty old verses. It is about sharpening her mind into a blade of wit and spontaneous creativity. While she studies the classical masters, the poetry most intimately tied to her role is the playful, often humorous kyoka, sometimes called mad verse. Kyoka takes the strict 31-syllable structure of the ancient waka form, but fills it with puns, double meanings, and contemporary references. It is a game of intellectual agility, perfect for the banquet setting. Imagine a patron presents her with a theme, perhaps the first autumn chill or the sight of the moon over the garden. In moments, she must compose a clever, fitting verse that delights the room, weaving in a subtle compliment or a witty observation. This requires a vast mental library of seasonal words, historical allusions, and linguistic tricks. Her study of the more famous haiku, the concise 17-syllable snapshot of a moment, hones this skill further. Haiku teaches her kairji, the cutting word, a kind of verbal punctuation that creates a pause for reflection, and kigo, the seasonal reference that roots the poem in the natural world. This training in brevity and observation makes her an expert at capturing the essence of a scene or a feeling in a few perfectly chosen words. This poetic agility is the secret engine of her conversation. It allows her to respond to a guest's comment not with a simple agreement, but with a metaphorical twist that elevates the exchange. If a client sighs about the fleeting cherry blossoms, she might reply with a line from a classic poem about their beauty being in their impermanence, or craft her own quick kyoka on the spot, turning melancholy into shared appreciation. This ability to compose and quote poetry transforms social interaction into collaborative art. It proves her mind is as engaged as her talents in music or dance, positioning her as a true intellectual companion. The poem in her world is the ultimate social currency, a gift of wit and perception that is offered and received with delight, ensuring that every conversation in her presence has the potential to become, in its own small way, a memorable work of art. The true test of a Geisha's wit was not a solitary poem, but a collaborative battle of wits. Within the intimate, lantern-lit rooms of an Azashiki banquet, the most celebrated intellectual game was renga, or linked verse. This was not a quiet literary exercise. It was a fast-paced, social performance where poetry became a conversation in real time. One person, often the geisha herself, would begin by composing the opening stanza, a three-line verse called the haku, which later evolved into the standalone haiku. This first verse set the theme, the season, and the tone. Then, a guest would respond with a two-line stanza that connected to the first, yet shifted the idea slightly, creating a new opening. Another guest or geisha would add another 3 lines, and so on, the poems snaking around the room, each link a surprise, a twist, a display of mental agility. The geisha's role was that of master conductor. She had to listen intently to every contribution, instantly grasp its meaning and poetic devices, and then craft her own link that was both respectful of the previous verse and creatively daring enough to keep the energy alive. A clumsy or irrelevant link would stall the game. A brilliant one would elicit delighted applause and spur the next participant to greater heights. Her skill here was multifaceted. She needed an encyclopedic knowledge of classical poetry for elegant allusions, a sharp ear for puns and wordplay for humor, and the social grace to weave a guest's clumsy attempt into something beautiful, making everyone feel clever and included. This made her the ultimate social catalyst. A famous geisha of the late Edo period, Oko of the Yashicho district, was renowned for this very talent. She could keep a renga chain flowing for hours with samurai and scholars, her verses noted for their startling imagery and clever seasonal references. Her prowess was not just entertainment. It was a demonstration of intellectual equality, allowing her to engage with the most educated men of her time on their own terms. Through renga, the geisha transformed the banquet from a simple party into a living salon, where the currency was not money, but creativity, and her quick mind was the most valuable asset in the room. But all that poetry and music finds its true purpose in the flickering light of the banquet room. The most vital and perhaps most difficult skill a geisha masters is not performed on a stage, but on the tatami mats of the azashiki. This is zashiki-jei, the parlor arts, the intangible study of human connection where she becomes the perfect companion. Her training here is less about memorizing steps and more about cultivating a kind of social alchemy, learning to read a room's invisible currents and shape them into an atmosphere of effortless enjoyment. It begins with the art of listening, not just hearing words, but absorbing the meaning behind them. A Geisha learns to listen with her entire being, her posture inclined slightly forward, her eyes attentive, offering small nods or quiet sounds of understanding that encourage a guest to open up. This active listening allows her to ask the one question that unlocks a deeper conversation, moving from polite small talk to a genuine exchange about a guest's passion for no theater or their opinion on a new novel. Her own knowledge must be both broad and ready. She studies current events, not to debate politics, which would be a grave breach of etiquette, but to understand the topics that occupy her clients' minds. She follows trends in art and literature, learns the basics of business and local gossip. Also, she can contribute intelligently no matter where the conversation drifts. The goal is never to show off her own intellect, but to act as a brilliant conversational mirror, reflecting a guest's interests back to them with added insight or a graceful turn of phrase. Her true genius lies in making everyone in the room feel like the most important person there. With a subtle shift of her shoulder, a slight refocus of her gaze, and a perfectly timed question, she can draw a shy guest into the circle or gently redirect a monopolizing speaker, all without a trace of rudeness. Humor is her most delicate tool. A Geisha's wit is never cutting or sarcastic. It is playful, often self-deprecating, and designed to lift the mood. She might tease a regular client about his predictable order of sake, a joke that conveys familiarity and affection. Or she could deftly diffuse a moment of unintended tension with a light, poetic observation about the weather, skillfully resetting the room's emotional temperature. This requires immense discretion, the ability to hear a confidence and let it vanish into the air, to witness a faux pas and pretend it never happened. Her training in Zashiki J ultimately makes her a master of social chemistry. She is the catalyst that transforms a group of individuals, who may be strangers or business rivals, into a cohesive, joyful party. She senses when the energy needs the spark of a lively song, the calm of a poetic interlude, or simply the space for comfortable silence. In her hands, conversation becomes the highest form of hospitality, an art where her entire education in music, dance, and literature is wielded not for performance, but for the singular purpose of creating a perfect, fleeting moment of human connection. This social chemistry often finds its catalyst in playful competition. To break the ice and weave a group of strangers into a circle of laughter, a Geisha might introduce a traditional drinking game like Kanpira Fune Fune. This is a rhythmic, chanting hand game, simple to learn but devilishly tricky under pressure. Everyone extends their hands, and on the chant, players must quickly show either a flat hand representing the calm sea or a fist representing the rolling waves. The goal is to be in the minority, to stand out from the group. The Geisha leads the chant, sets the pace, and with a mischievous smile, watches as dignified businessmen fumble their gestures, erupting in good-natured groans when they lose. The penalty is a sip of sake, but the real prize is the shared, uninhibited laughter that dissolves formalities. These games are a masterstroke of social engineering, using playful rules to create instant camaraderie and equalize the room, allowing the Geisha to guide the energy from polite reserve to joyful connection. Her role as the conductor of merriment is matched by her mastery of the drink itself. Serving sake is a silent language of respect and attention. The etiquette is precise and deeply symbolic. She never pours for herself. Her cup is filled by a guest or a sister Geisha, reinforcing her role as hostess. When she pours for others, she uses both hands on the bottle, a gesture of humility and care. She pours quietly, stopping just before the cup is full. A practical measure to prevent spills, but also a poetic nod to the Japanese concept of moderation, leaving a little room for more, just as a good conversation should never feel completely finished. Her eyes are always watching, not the bottle, but the cups around her. She knows the precise moment to lean in for a refill, often just as a guest takes their last sip, an act of seamless anticipation that makes a person feel truly seen. This vigilance extends to the delicate task of handling intoxication. A guest who has had too much is never shamed or confronted. Instead, she might subtly switch their sake cup for a smaller one, or begin serving them a milder, warm tea alongside tiny bites of food, slowing the pace without a word of judgment. Her grace here is a protective one, ensuring the atmosphere remains joyful and safe, preserving everyone's dignity within the collective experience. All of this, the games, the service, the conversation, coalesces into an art the Japanese call eroke. This is not flirtation in a blunt or physical sense. It is the creation of a captivating, romantic atmosphere through suggestion and elusive charm. It is the sparkle in her eye as she wins a hand game, the slight, appreciative tilt of her head when a guest offers a clever poetic link, the way her sleeve might accidentally, yet perfectly, brush against the tatami as she reaches for the sake bottle. Eroke is in the promise of a shared secret, a private joke that blooms just between two people in a crowded room. It is wit wielded as a delicate lure, a compliment delivered with a layer of poetic ambiguity that leaves the recipient pleasantly wondering. She masters the power of the unspoken, the charged pause, the smile that seems meant for you alone, all while maintaining an untouchable elegance. This artful suggestion is what transforms a pleasant evening into a memorable enchantment, making every guest feel uniquely fascinating in her presence. It is the final, shimmering layer of her parlor arts, proof that the most powerful connections are often built not on what is given, but on what is gracefully, tantalizingly withheld. All that cultivated charm is framed by a masterpiece of fabric and symbolism, the kimono. To call it an outfit is a profound understatement, for a geisha does not merely wear her kimono, she inhabits it as a living canvas of tradition and social language. The process of dressing is itself a high art, so complex that she relies on a professional kitsukushi, a kimono dresser, to achieve the perfect presentation. Yet a geisha must possess a deep, scholarly understanding of every layer and fold, for her entire identity is communicated through this silent textile code. The foundation is the naga juben, a full-length silk underrobe that protects the delicate outer kimono from body oils and creates a smooth, flawless line. Over this, the kimono itself is carefully wrapped, left side over right, a rule followed by the living with the opposite reserved for the deceased. Then comes the centerpiece, the obi. This is not a simple sash, but a monumental work of art, a stiff, brocade belt nearly 4 meters long. For a maiko, the obi is tied in the magnificent derari style, a long, dangling knot that reaches almost to her ankles, a vibrant, heavy cascade of silk that announces her apprentice status with every step. The full geisha wears her obi in a more refined, compact knot, often the elegant drum-shaped teiko musubai, signaling her mature artistry. Every detail is a deliberate choice loaded with meaning. The length of the swinging sleeves, called furisode, is longest for the youngest maiko, gradually shortening as she progresses. The drape of the collar at the nape of the neck, the iri, is adjusted to show a precise, alluring sliver of skin, a considered aesthetic known as the nape iri. This is not accidental, it is a studied part of her allure, framed by the white makeup and the precise line of her coiffure. Most telling of all are the patterns and colors, a visual poetry that changes with the calendar. She would never wear cherry blossoms in autumn or maple leaves in spring. A kimono adorned with wisteria signals early summer, while a pattern of chrysanthemums speaks of late fall. Even the color palette shifts, moving from the vibrant pinks and greens of youth to the more subdued, elegant tones of deep blues, purples, and silvers worn by established geisha. A single misstep in this seasonal language would be as glaring as wearing a Christmas sweater in July, marking her as culturally ignorant. Thus, when she stands before her client, every element of her appearance is a conversation she has already begun. The subdued pattern of pine and bamboo on her hem speaks of winter resilience. The way her collar lies tells of her experience. The weight and style of her obi declares her rank. Her kimono is a walking dissertation on Japanese aesthetics, a testament to years of study not in dressing herself, but in understanding how to be dressed, transforming her body into a living, breathing emblem of a timeless art form. That silent textile code finds its ultimate expression on the canvas of her own face and hair. The geisha's iconic white makeup, known as Shire Nuri, is far more than a cosmetic choice. It is a ceremonial mask that marks her transition from the ordinary world into the realm of art. The traditional formula was a potent mix of powdered lead and rice paste, a combination that created a luminous, porcelain finish but carried a terrible cost, with many older geisha suffering from lead poisoning. Today, modern, safe alternatives are used, but the application remains a sacred, time-honored ritual. A geisha applies the thick paste herself, using a broad brush to cover her entire face, neck, and chest, but she deliberately leaves two bare, artistic lines. The most famous is the eerie ashi, the nape line, left bare in a distinctive W or V shape. This is not merely practical, it is considered one of the most alluring and elegant parts of her presentation, a subtle frame of natural skin against the stark white, a reminder of the human artist beneath the mask. Then come the accents that give the mask life. With a slim brush, she paints bold red lines along her upper and lower eyelids, and fills in her lips with a vibrant crimson, traditionally made from safflower. The final touch is the delicate blackening of her eyebrows, a subtle curve that completes the transformation. This entire process erases her individual features, replacing them with a stylized, universal face of ideal beauty, a blank slate upon which emotions can be projected during a dance or a subtle conversation. Her hair completes this living sculpture. The elaborate Nihingami hairstyles are works of architectural genius, each knot and loop denoting her rank and stage of training. A Maiko's hair is her own, dressed weekly by a specialist into fantastical shapes with names like the split peach or the hanging chrysanthemum, supported by wax and camellia oil. The full geisha or geiko often wears a wig for convenience, but its style is no less significant. These hairstyles are punctuated by the exquisite language of kanzashi, the hair ornaments. These are not random decorations. They are a monthly calendar worn on the head. In February, she might wear a delicate hairpin of red and white plum blossoms, braving the last of the winter cold. In April, a cascade of cherry blossoms or a silver butterfly signals spring's arrival. A maple leaf in autumn, a snowflake in December, each kanzashi is a poetic nod to the turning world outside the tea house walls. Preserving this intricate artwork requires extreme physical discipline. A Meiko must sleep on a takamakura, a special high wooden pillow with a small neck support. She rests only the base of her neck on this block. her elaborate hairstyle suspended in the air above the mattress. It is an intensely uncomfortable way to sleep, forcing her to remain still on her back, a nightly exercise in endurance that protects the labor-intensive hairstyle for several days. This practice is a profound metaphor for her entire life, sacrificing personal comfort for the preservation of artistic perfection. Every morning, when she looks in the mirror at that flawless white face and sculpted hair, she is not seeing herself. She is witnessing the final, visible layer of her years of study, a walking masterpiece that announces, before she speaks a single word or plays a single note, that she is a guardian of a vanishing world. The discipline of shaping a single branch or blossom mirrors the precision of her calligraphy. Ikebana, known as the Way of Flowers, is another profound study that teaches a geisha to see nature not as a subject, but as a partner in artistic expression. This is not casual flower arranging for a cheerful centerpiece. It is Kato, a disciplined path where every stem, leaf, and empty space holds meaning, a silent philosophy expressed through living materials. A geisha learns to create harmony between man, heaven, and earth within the confines of a vase. She studies established schools, most often the classical and deeply spiritual Ikonobo tradition, which dates back over 500 years to Buddhist flower offerings. Here, arrangements follow strict triangular compositions representing specific elements of the universe, each angle and line a deliberate choice. She might also explore the more modern Sotsu school, which embraces freer forms and unconventional materials, allowing for a more personal, contemporary statement. Her training is hands-on and deeply thoughtful. She learns to select branches not for their obvious blooms, but for their inherent line, the graceful curve that suggests wind, or the rugged twist that speaks of age. She is taught to strip away all but the essential, to find beauty in a single, perfect camellia bud rather than a crowded bouquet. Thorns are left on a rose stem. A withered leaf might be included to hint at the passage of time. This minimalist approach forces a deep observation of each plant's true character. Her creations have a sacred purpose. They are destined for the takanoma, the raised alcove in a tea room or banquet hall. This space is the spiritual heart of the room, and her ikebana arrangement, placed beside a scroll and perhaps a simple incense burner, completes a triad of art that sets the tone for the entire gathering. An arrangement of pine, bamboo, and plum blossoms, known as the Three Friends of Winter, conveys resilience and hope at a New Year's celebration. A low, flowing composition of autumn grasses and a single chrysanthemum in a rustic container evokes a feeling of wistful maturity. The guests will contemplate this living sculpture as part of their experience, its silent message subtly guiding the atmosphere. This constant, intimate work with seasonal flora sharpens a geisha's kaisuken, her sense of the season, to a razor's edge. It becomes an instinct. She doesn't just know that cherry blossoms mean April. She feels the specific quality of light they require, the particular shade of pink that appears just before they fall. This sensitivity bleeds into every other aspect of her artistry. It dictates the pattern on her kimono, a fabric woven with morning glories for a summer banquet. It informs the seasonal word she chooses for a spontaneous haiku. It provides the perfect, effortless topic of conversation, as she might point out the first fireflies of the evening or remark on the particular fragrance of the rain that afternoon. Through ikebana, she learns to read the natural world as a continuous, elegant text, and her entire profession becomes an act of translating that text for her guests, allowing them to feel the turning of the year in the curve of a branch or the choice of a single, perfect flower. For a Kyoto Jaiko, the city itself is her stage, and its history is her script. Her education extends far beyond the tea house walls, into the very streets and waterways of Japan's ancient capital. She becomes a living archive of Kyoto, studying its geography, its legends, and its annual rhythms with the dedication of a scholar. This knowledge is not academic, it is a vital tool of her hospitality, allowing her to transform a simple evening into a personalized journey through 1,000 years of culture. Her expertise begins at home in the Jin district. She knows its story from the ground up, understanding that it originally formed around Yasaka Shrine to serve pilgrims and visitors. She can point out the subtle differences between Jin Higashi and Jin Kabu, the two main Jaiko communities, each with its own traditions and annual dances. The cobblestone streets of Hanamikoji are not just a picturesque lane to her, they are a living timeline where the wooden lattices of the achaya, or tea houses, have witnessed centuries of artistic exchange. The soft murmur you hear in the evening is not just the city, but the Kamo River, a central artery of Kyoto life. A Jaiko understands its profound symbolism. It is the boundary between the worldly bustle of the downtown areas and the refined, artistic world of the Geisha districts. She knows its seasonal personality, the gentle flow of summer where people gather for evening dining on its banks, and the fierce, rain-swollen currents of the typhoon season. She can share stories of ancient poets who composed verses by its shores, or of imperial processions that once crossed its bridges. This intimate knowledge allows her to craft conversations and outings that feel deeply personal. If a guest expresses a love for history, she might suggest a quiet stroll along the Shirakawa Canal, lined with weeping willows, and recount tales of the wealthy merchants who built their homes there. Her role as a cultural guide culminates in her mastery of Kyoto's magnificent festival calendar. The pinnacle is the Jin Matsuri, a month-long celebration every July with origins dating back to the year 869, a purification ritual to appease the gods during a plague. A Jaiko does not just watch the parade, she understands it. She can explain the hierarchy of the massive, elaborately decorated floats, the Yamaboko, detailing which neighborhoods sponsor which float and the priceless heirloom tapestries displayed on them. She knows the significance of the sacred children who ride atop, purified and acting as divine messengers. When the festival's unique music, the Jinbayashi, fills the air with its frantic flute and drum rhythms, she can identify the melodies and their traditional names. This expertise makes her an invaluable companion for a visitor. She can recommend the best, less crowded vantage points for the procession, or explain the deep spiritual meaning behind the seemingly chaotic festivities. Her knowledge encompasses other annual events as well, from the solemn beauty of the cherry blossom viewings at Maruyama Park to the haunting Daimanji bonfires that light up the mountainsides in August. Each event a chapter in Kyoto's seasonal story. By weaving this local lore into her entertainment, a Kyoto Jaiko offers something truly unique. She becomes a bridge. She connects the transient visitor to the eternal soul of the city, transforming a night of entertainment into an immersive cultural experience, where every poured cup of sake is accompanied by a story, and every glance out the window at a passing lantern holds a deeper, more beautiful meaning. Even the simplest object in a geisha's hand holds a secret vocabulary. The folding fan, or sensu, is far more than a tool for cooling herself. It is a silent partner in her communication, an extension of her will that speaks without a sound. In the context of dance, the fan becomes a transformative prop. With a sharp flick of her wrist, she can open it with a crisp snap that mimics the sudden flight of a bird. A slow, deliberate unfolding might represent the blooming of a flower or the rising of the moon. She can point with its tip to indicate a distant mountain in the story, or use its spread surface to hide her face in a gesture of modesty or sorrow. Every movement is codified, a precise visual language studied for years, so that the story told by her body is perfectly clear to a knowledgeable audience. In the social setting of the Azushiki, this language becomes more personal and subtle. A geisha might gently fan herself not out of heat, but to create a moment of thoughtful pause in the conversation. Holding the closed fan vertically against her lips signals she is listening intently. If she opens it fully and holds it before the lower half of her face, she is creating a graceful barrier, a way to smile with her eyes while maintaining an air of mystery. She could even use the fan to direct attention toward a guest who has just spoken, a silent, elegant way of honoring their contribution. This mastery turns an everyday item into an instrument of nuance, allowing her to converse through gesture in a crowded, noisy room where words might be lost. Her accessories extend this philosophy of meaningful elegance. The keigo, a small, finely woven silk purse, is never clumsily stuffed into an obi. It is carried with deliberate care, often in her hand or tucked with precise placement. Its very presence speaks of preparedness and refinement, holding the small necessities of her evening. The way she retrieves a coin or a handkerchief from it is a study in graceful economy, every movement smooth and considered. Similarly, the tenugui, a thin cotton hand towel, is an object of surprising versatility and aesthetic rule. It is never damp or crumpled. A geisha folds it with exacting neatness, its crisp edges and often beautiful seasonal pattern displayed when she places it beside her for a banquet. She might use it to delicately wipe her fingers after handling food, or to blot her lips with a fleeting, almost invisible motion. In the summer, a lightly dampened, scented tenugui might be offered to a guest to refresh their hands, an act of considerate hospitality. These items are never functional afterthoughts. They are components of her total presentation. Their condition, their placement, and the grace with which she handles them are all part of the unspoken testimony to her discipline. A frayed tenugui or a keigo handled with rough haste would betray a lack of polish, disrupting the illusion of seamless perfection. Through these small, studied actions, she communicates her attention to detail and her respect for the occasion, proving that in her world, there is no distinction between the grand art of the dance and the minor art of folding a cloth. Every object is a word, and together, they form the complete, eloquent sentence of her presence. This silent eloquence with objects extends to a far more pragmatic form of communication, the language of ledgers and contracts. While the public sees the artist, a senior geisha's education must also encompass the sharp, practical mind of a businesswoman, for the survival of her art depends on it. The pinnacle of this transition is becoming the Akasan, the mother of an Akiya. This title is not merely honorary, it signifies a profound shift from performer to chief executive, manager, and guardian of the entire geisha house. Her training for this role is rigorous and often overlooked, involving a deep study of financial acumen. She must master the art of accounting, meticulously tracking the Akiya's complex income and expenses. This includes the costs of the Maiko's extravagant kimonos and lessons, the household's daily upkeep, and the salaries of any staff. Every yen spent on a new hair ornament or a silk obi is an investment in the house's future reputation, and she must weigh these costs against the income generated by her geisha's engagements. A significant part of her financial strategy involves the delicate negotiation of fees with the Achaya. the exclusive tea houses that host the banquets. She understands the subtle pricing tiers for different occasions, the fee for a Mako's first appearance versus that of a senior Jaco, and how to structure payments for multi-hour gatherings that include music, dance, and conversation. This is not a blunt transaction. It is a nuanced dance of respect and value, ensuring her artists are compensated fairly while maintaining the tea house's own business. Perhaps her most critical responsibility is cultivating and maintaining relationships with the Dana, the patrons. Historically, a Dana was a wealthy benefactor who provided financial support for a specific Geisha, covering her training debts and living expenses in a formal, long-term arrangement. While this traditional system has evolved, the concept of patronage remains vital. The Aka-san must be a master of relationship management, understanding that these patrons are not just clients but essential partners in preserving the cultural ecosystem. She knows how to express gratitude with exquisite grace, perhaps through a personally chosen gift that reflects the patron's taste, or by ensuring her Geisha remembers his favorite song or seasonal reference. She navigates these relationships with a blend of deep personal courtesy and clear-eyed business sense, ensuring the Akia's economic stability so that the artistic training within it can continue undisturbed. This behind-the-scenes knowledge transforms her from an individual artist into a steward of an entire tradition. Her success is measured not in personal applause, but in the thriving community she sustains, the Makos she guides to maturity, and the centuries-old customs she protects through shrewd, practical wisdom. The white makeup and elegant kimono may define her public image, but it is her understanding of balance sheets and human loyalty that truly allows the music to keep playing. That business acumen supports a far more visible form of discipline, one carved into the body itself. A Geisha's iconic grace is not a natural gift, but a physical language forged through relentless daily training. Every movement, from the way she enters a room to the angle of her wrist as she pours tea, is part of a studied performance called ohako, the basic forms. This begins with the very foundation of her presence, her walk. To glide silently across the tatami, she masters suriashi, the sliding step. Her feet never fully lift from the floor, instead, they skim the surface in a smooth, continuous motion that prevents the heavy silk of her kimono from jerking or swaying awkwardly. This creates the illusion that she is floating, her hem flowing around her like quiet water, an effect that requires immense core strength and balance to maintain over hours. The goal is to erase any sense of haste or heaviness, to move through space with a weightless, ethereal calm that immediately commands the room's attention. This physical control extends to her posture, which must be perfectly upright yet never rigid. Her shoulders are held back, her chin is slightly tucked, and her gaze remains soft and forward, a stance that conveys both confidence and serene attentiveness. It is a posture designed to showcase the lines of the kimono to their fullest advantage, turning her body into a living display of its elegant architecture. The true test of this physical endurance comes in stillness. A geisha must be able to sit in seiza, the formal kneeling position, for the entire length of a banquet, which can last for hours. In seiza, she kneels with her legs folded beneath her feet pointing backward, and her back perfectly straight, resting her weight on her heels. For the uninitiated, this position becomes agonizing within minutes, cutting off circulation and causing sharp pain in the ankles and knees. A geisha, through years of practice, learns to distribute her weight and find a center of calm that allows her to endure the discomfort without a single flicker of distress showing on her face. She becomes a master of subtle, almost invisible micro-adjustments, shifting her weight imperceptibly to maintain circulation, all while keeping her expression composed and engaged in the conversation. This ability to project ease while enduring physical strain is a cornerstone of her professionalism. Even the simple act of bowing is a nuanced study. There are prescribed angles for every social interaction. A slight 15-degree nod of the head acknowledges a peer or concludes a sentence. A deeper 30-degree bow shows respect to a senior geisha or a valued guest. The most formal 45-degree bow, where her hands slide down her thighs toward her knees, is reserved for the most solemn occasions or profound apologies. Each bow is performed with a slow, controlled descent and rise, the neck kept straight, the eyes lowered, the entire motion a silent sentence of respect. This economy of motion defines her off-stage life as much as her performances. She learns to perform every action with a mindful minimalism, whether she is folding a tenugui, adjusting her obi, or simply picking up a sake bottle. There is no wasted energy, no fumbling, no abrupt gestures. When she turns her head, it is a smooth, deliberate pivot. When she gestures, her hands move in curved, flowing pathways, never in straight, jagged lines. This cultivated poise means that even the most mundane action, like smoothing her kimono sleeve or taking a quiet sip of tea, becomes a small, aesthetically pleasing event. It communicates a total mastery of self, a mind so present and disciplined that it governs even the smallest muscle. This physical training is the invisible framework upon which all her other arts are hung. The dance requires it, the shamisen demands it, the tea ceremony embodies it. Her body is not just an instrument for art, it is the first and most fundamental artwork she must perfect, a living sculpture of poise that speaks of her dedication before she ever sings a note or recites a poem. The silent eloquence of her posture tells you everything you need to know about the years of unseen effort behind every graceful smile. Her silent poise is a direct inheritance from the women who walked these same wooden corridors centuries before her. A geisha's identity is not formed in a vacuum. It is woven from the stories of her legendary predecessors, a living link in a chain of artistry that stretches back to the pleasure quarters of old Edo. She studies the history of the karukai, the flower and willow world, not as dry facts, but as a sacred lineage that gives meaning to her every gesture. This world's roots are tangled with an earlier, distinct profession, that of the Teiyu. In the 17th century, Teiyu were the pinnacle of the licensed pleasure quarters, celebrated not just for beauty but for their elite education in poetry, music, and dance. They were the celebrities of their day, setting fashion trends and commanding extraordinary respect. But as the merchant class grew wealthy and cultural tastes shifted, a new kind of artist emerged, one who emphasized artistic skill and witty conversation over other services. This was the early geisha, originally male performers who provided musical entertainment, with women gradually entering the field and defining the profession we recognize today. A geisha learns this evolution to understand her own role. She is not a Teiyu, but she is a spiritual descendant in her dedication to high art and intellectual companionship. She memorizes the names and talents of the great Jaiko who shaped the tradition. She might study the story of Mizuki Toyotaka, an 18th century performer famed not only for her beauty but for her sharp intellect and business acumen, who navigated the complex social hierarchies of her time with legendary skill. These figures are her professional ancestors, their triumphs and challenges offering timeless lessons in resilience, creativity, and navigating the delicate balance between art and commerce. Their legendary composure during personal trials becomes a model for her own professional demeanor. This historical awareness is cemented by learning the intricate, unwritten rules that have governed the flower and willow world for generations. The Karyukai operates on a strict, internal code of conduct that prioritizes harmony and respect above all else. A geisha must understand the precise hierarchy within her own district, knowing the order of seniority among the Akiya houses and among individual Jaiko. This dictates everything from the order of entering a banquet room to who pours the first ceremonial cup of sake. She learns the complex etiquette of introductions and referrals, as one cannot simply visit a tea house without a proper introduction from an existing patron, a system designed to protect the exclusivity and safety of the community. There are rules about gift giving, about the appropriate language to use with seniors, juniors, and clients, and about the subtle art of settling professional disputes with quiet discretion, never public confrontation. This internal constitution is rarely written down. It is absorbed through observation and the careful guidance of her one-san. It teaches her that her individual expression always exists within a framework of collective responsibility. Her personal fame must never eclipse the reputation of her house or her district. Her success is seen not as a solitary achievement, but as a reflection of the strength of her teachers and the health of the tradition itself. This fosters a powerful sense of belonging to something far larger than herself. Ultimately, this deep historical and social knowledge provides the final, essential layer of her artistry, a profound sense of legacy. When she performs a dance from the kabuki repertoire, she is not just executing steps. She is channeling the innovations of a specific geisha from the Meiji era who first adapted that piece for the smaller tea room. When she wears a kimono with a particular crest, she understands which historic geisha house popularized that design. This transforms her work from mere performance into an act of cultural continuity. In conversation, this legacy gives her a bottomless well of anecdotes and metaphors. She can draw a parallel between a guest's modern business dilemma and the savvy way a famous 19th century geisha managed her patrons. She can reference a poetic exchange between a geisha and a samurai that became legendary, using it to illuminate a point about loyalty or aesthetic taste. This historical fluency allows her to make the past feel vividly present, enriching the moment with layers of meaning that a less studied entertainer could never provide. It answers the silent question of why her profession still matters. She is not a relic, but a curator, a translator who makes centuries of refined culture accessible and thrilling for a contemporary audience. Her white makeup becomes a mask not of anonymity, but of every geisha who came before her, and her carefully studied grace is a promise to those who will follow. That profound sense of legacy is heard in the very sound of her voice. For a geisha in Kyoto, the true marker of authenticity is not just seen, but heard in the mastery of a specific musical language, the Kyoto dialect. Known as Kyo Kotoba, this is not a simple accent. It is a linguistic art form, a softer, more melodic way of speaking that carries the ancient capital's elegance in every syllable. Compared to the sharper, more direct cadence of standard Tokyo Japanese, Kyo Kotoba flows with a gentle, polite lilt. Vowels are drawn out slightly, consonants are softened, and the overall tone is one of exquisite consideration. A simple word like yes transforms from the standard hi to the more nuanced ohai, with that delicate opening vowel adding a layer of deference. This dialect is packed with unique vocabulary, words that have faded from common use elsewhere but are preserved in the tea rooms and dance halls of Jin. A Kyoto Jaiko does not simply say something is beautiful. She might use the word akini, a term of deep gratitude and appreciation that feels warmer and more personal than the standard arigato. Mastering this is a core part of a Mako's training. From the moment she enters the Akiya, she is immersed in its sounds. Her older sister Jaiko corrects her constantly, drilling her on the proper inflection for every greeting, every expression of thanks, every polite refusal. She practices not just the words, but the musicality of them, learning to let her voice rise and fall with the gentle, wave-like rhythm that characterizes Kyoto speech. This linguistic training is fused with the complex study of Keigo, the system of honorific speech that defines Japanese social hierarchy. Keigo has multiple levels, from the polite teinego used with clients to the deeply humble kenjogo and the highly respectful sankeigo used for superiors and patrons. A geisha must navigate this intricate web instinctively, shifting her language to perfectly match the status and relationship of every person in the room. She learns to refer to her own actions with humble verbs, while elevating the actions of her guest with honorific forms, a verbal dance of self-effacement and respect that makes the listener feel esteemed. This dual mastery of dialect and honorifics does more than just sound pretty. It creates a powerful aura of oral elegance. When a Kyoto Jaiko speaks, her voice itself becomes an instrument, playing the distinct melody of a 1,000-year-old city. It signals her refined upbringing and her deep connection to the local culture, instantly setting her apart from geisha in other regions. This linguistic polish is crucial in her singing as well. The classical songs she performs, the kauta and nagata, are often composed with the Kyoto dialect's phrasing and vocabulary in mind. To sing them with a standard Tokyo accent would sound jarring and inauthentic, like performing a Scottish ballad with an American twang. Her training ensures that every note she sings is phonetically perfect, carrying the intended emotion and regional color. This attention to the sound of words transforms ordinary conversation into a layered performance. The way she asks a guest if they would like more tea, using the softest honorific forms and the distinct Kyoto lilt, is as carefully composed as a line of poetry. It wraps every interaction in a blanket of traditional grace, making the listener feel they have stepped not just into a tea house, but into a living, breathing piece of Kyoto's history. Her voice, in its every refined inflection, is the final, undeniable proof that she is not playing a role, but embodying a culture, speaking its most beautiful language as her native tongue. Her voice may carry the melody of Kyoto, but the music itself is governed by a much older, stricter form of authority. The intricate shamisen melody she plays, the precise angle of her fan in a dance, even the way she arranges a single flower, all flow from a single, powerful source, the Emoto system. This is the hidden skeleton of her artistic world, a hierarchical structure that organizes Japanese traditional arts into formal schools, each with a living lineage that stretches back for generations. Think of it not as a simple school, but as a vast, artistic family with a single head, the Emoto. This Grand Master, often a direct descendant of the school's founder, holds absolute authority over the art's techniques, repertoire, and very philosophy. When a geisha begins her study of dance or music, she doesn't just learn a skill, she is adopted into one of these lineages, swearing allegiance to its particular style and rules. Her personal guide within this formidable system is her shisho, her master teacher. This is often a senior, retired geisha of immense skill or a dedicated professional musician who has devoted her life to the art. The relationship is one of absolute reverence. The student addresses her teacher with the deepest honorifics, serves her tea, and observes her every move with rapt attention. Learning is not a democratic process of discussion. It is a transmission of knowledge from master to disciple, passed down through meticulous observation and endless repetition. A Meiko will watch her shisho play a shamisen phrase 100 times, absorbing the exact pressure of the plectrum, the subtle vibrato of the left hand, before she is allowed to touch the instrument herself. She will practice a single dance step for weeks, her teacher correcting the angle of her foot by a mere centimeter, until the movement is etched into her muscle memory. This method prioritizes perfection of form over individual expression, ensuring the art is preserved unchanged across centuries. Her progression within this system is marked by sacred, ceremonial milestones. One of the most significant is the granting of her Jaime, her professional stage name. This is not a casual nickname, it is a gift from her teacher, a piece of the artistic lineage itself. The name often incorporates one character from her teacher's name or the name of the Akiya, literally weaving her identity into the fabric of the school. It is a proud and solemn moment, signifying she is no longer just a student, but a recognized member of the tradition. Further advancement is marked by permission. She must wait for her shisho to grant her the right to perform more advanced, prestigious pieces in public. A young geisha would never presume to perform a complex, classical nagata piece at an important banquet without explicit approval. This permission is earned through demonstrated mastery and unwavering dedication, a testament to her teacher's confidence. Each new piece she is allowed to learn is like receiving a key to a locked room within the great mansion of her art, a room containing deeper beauty and greater responsibility. This rigid structure might seem restrictive, but it provides something invaluable, a direct, unbroken line to the past. When she plays a song exactly as her shisho taught her, who learned it from her teacher before her, she is not just playing notes, she is giving voice to a chain of artists that may reach back to the Edo period. The Emoto system transforms her individual practice into a collective act of preservation, where her personal discipline upholds an entire world of beauty. Yet that unbroken chain now faces a world moving at a dizzying speed. The Geisha's curriculum, once a sealed archive of classical arts, has quietly expanded its pages to include new, essential chapters for survival. Alongside the shamisen and tea ceremony, a modern Meiko might now find herself studying basic English phrases, not to perform Shakespeare, but to welcome a foreign guest with a graceful "please, make yourself comfortable," or explain the meaning of a seasonal sweet. Her conversations require more than classical poetry. They demand a careful awareness of contemporary global affairs and business trends, allowing her to engage with international CEOs and diplomats without stumbling into political controversy. Perhaps the most striking new skill resides not in the tea room, but on a smartphone. Senior Geisha and Aka-san now must understand the delicate art of social media management, using carefully curated Instagram accounts or district websites to promote upcoming public dances, showcase kimono artistry, and offer a respectful, controlled glimpse into their world to a global audience. This is not a betrayal of tradition, but a pragmatic adaptation, a way to ensure the Atshire remain relevant and their doors continue to open. The greatest challenge, however, is not what to add to the study, but finding those willing to undertake it at all. The number of young women embarking on the arduous Meiko path has declined sharply, a quiet crisis echoing through the silent hallways of the Akiya. The reasons are a mirror of modern Japan, a shrinking youth population, more lucrative and less restrictive career paths for women, and a perception that the Geisha life demands too great a sacrifice of personal freedom. An apprenticeship that asks a teenager to surrender her private life, sleep on a wooden pillow, and dedicate every waking moment to art is a harder sell in an age of instant gratification and digital connection. This decline forces a profound and difficult balance. How does one preserve a 200-year-old art form without becoming a museum exhibit? The answer lies in a subtle, ongoing negotiation. Some districts have slightly relaxed the most rigid rules, allowing for more personal time or communication with family, while holding the line on artistic standards. The goal is not to dilute the tradition, but to make its vessel, the life of the artist, sustainable for a new generation. The Geisha world today is not a relic under glass. It is a living culture in a careful, continuous dance with modernity, proving that true preservation is not about refusing to change, but about knowing exactly what must never change, and what can adapt to let that core endure. The final measure of her education is not in any single performance, but in the invisible moment between them. When the last note of the shamisen fades and she places the plectrum down, her hands do not fall still. They flow effortlessly into the gesture of pouring tea. The same fingers that press the strings now cradle the ceramic bowl with a featherlight touch. The mind that held the complex melody of a classical song now pivots to compose a spontaneous verse about the evening's moon, her voice shifting from the plaintive tones of Yutai to the warm, witty cadence of conversation without a single jarring transition. This is the synthesis, the point where decades of separate disciplines dissolve into a single, radiant expression of cultured living. She is not a musician who also dances, or a dancer who sometimes recites poetry. She is a complete work of art, a living testament to the idea that true mastery is the seamless fusion of many skills into one coherent being. Think of her as a Renaissance polymath, but one whose canvas is the present moment. Like Da Vinci, who saw no boundary between anatomy, engineering, and painting, the Geisha recognizes no wall between music and manners, between calligraphy and chemistry of conversation. Her lifelong study is not toward a single peak of expertise, but toward the cultivation of a harmonious whole. The geometry of her flower arrangement informs the balance of her dance posture. The rhythmic discipline of drum practice underpins the perfect timing of her humorous interjection. The patience learned from grinding ink for shodo becomes the deep listening she offers a guest. Every lesson cross-pollinates, each art strengthening and refining the others until they are inseparable. Watch her during an azushiki. She may begin the evening accompanying a dance, her shamisen setting a brisk, lively tempo. As the dance concludes and the applause settles, she does not retreat into the role of a mere musician. She turns to the guest of honor, and with a glance at the scroll in the alcove depicting autumn grasses, she offers a compliment on his recent business success, weaving in a metaphor about the resilience of reeds in the wind. She has, in seconds, connected the artistic theme of the room to his personal world, demonstrating that her observation is both aesthetic and deeply personal. When the sake cups are filled, she leads a playful drinking game, her hands moving with the same precise elegance they showed on the instrument. Later, as the conversation turns to a melancholic topic, she might softly sing a fragment of an old folk song, not as a formal performance, but as a gentle, empathetic punctuation to the mood, her voice a bridge between shared feeling and cultural memory. This synthesis is her unique allure, and it explains why she cannot be replaced by a talented musician, a skilled dancer, or a clever hostess alone. It is the alchemy of all these elements at once. The wit is sharper because it is delivered with the poise of a dancer. The dance is more meaningful because the dancer understands the poetry behind the movement. The music is more soulful because the player knows the social silence it is meant to fill. She is a curator of experience, orchestrating beauty, intellect, and emotion into a flowing, unforgettable encounter. Her ultimate art is the art of integration, proving that the highest refinement is not specialization, but the graceful ability to make every facet of learning shine together, creating a single, captivating performance of a life dedicated to beauty in all its forms. The Geisha's path is a testament to a single, profound truth, that beauty is not born, it is built. It is constructed note by note on the shamisen, stroke by stroke in calligraphy, word by word in a perfectly timed poem. Her education forms a complete philosophy of living artistry, where the discipline of the body, the cultivation of the mind, and the grace of the spirit are woven into one seamless existence. She is far more than an entertainer. She is a guardian of cultural memory, a professional artist whose stage is the intimate terrain, and a master of hospitality for whom every gesture is a considered gift. This lifelong study, this breathtaking synthesis of music, dance, poetry, and social grace, is what transforms a woman into a living bridge between the past's profound elegance and the present's fleeting moment. If this journey into the hidden curriculum of the Geisha captivated you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more explorations into the world's historical mysteries. We would love to hear your thoughts, so tell us in the comments which of their many refined skills surprised or impressed you the most.